Welcome to the Shuffle Curious podcast. I'm your host, Patty Lynch. Have you ever seen an amazing shuffler at a show or festival and wondered, how did they get started? How did they develop their skills? And who are they beyond the dance floor? Well, that's exactly what we're exploring in the show. We'll dive into the personal experiences of the dancers that make up our beloved community. We'll be learning more about who they are and what makes this dance so special to them. So, with that, let's jump into the show and let's get curious together. Hello to the Shuffle Curious community out there. This is another episode of the Shuffle Curious podcast. And in this episode, I will be recapping ShuffleCon, which was hosted by FTS. And it was a conference by shufflers, for shufflers. And I'll be giving a general synopsis of what ShuffleCon was, also my point of view, just in general as well, and then what Shuffle Curious was up to during my weekend in LA. And so I will do my best to recap the event in many different lenses. And before I move forward, I would also just like to add any feedback on the recaps would be great. I plan to do these consistently in the future for battles, festivals, events like this as well. So if there's anything you guys would like me to add or to subtract, because I know that I can talk for maybe too long at times. Please let me know. Give me feedback. Whatever would be most valuable to y'all would be great for me to know. And I like to speak about these things as soon as they conclude, because I'm usually the most excited and most hyped for them, and I can recall most of the experiences there. And so if you guys have anything for me for these recaps, just let me know. Moving forward, I just wanted to express gratitude for all the rich experiences that I had at ShuffleCon. It was very special. I was able to reconnect with a lot of people. Also, just get formal introductions to a lot of the shufflers that I've seen on Instagram and online, and maybe I've, in passing, have spoken to them, but didn't really have the opportunity to connect the way that I did at ShuffleCon. So it was amazing in that regard. And also, I would just like to highlight the importance of these events for that reason. It brings us all closer. It strengthens the fabric of the shuffle community when we're able to hold space like this and to have everyone gather in this form and fashion. I think it does us all justice, and we all leave as better people and more connected to one another. So with that, I'll kind of just jump in. So just with some of the more factual information about ShuffleCon. For those who don't know what it was at all, maybe this is the first they're hearing about it, but the Shuffle Conference, hosted by FTS, took place on Saturday, June 10th in downtown LA. The vision for ShuffleCon was to really unite the shuffle community and to promote shuffle culture as an art form, showcasing its diversity and all the various styles within. And the way that they did that, was through a couple different modalities. They had a shuffle tournament linked to it. So participants were able to enter the tournament first online through qualifying rounds, and then in person at the event after they kind of were whittled down throughout those online rounds. And then they showcased their skills and they got after it, and we had a winner. And so I'll go a little bit more into that later in the recap. But the next element that I thought was really cool was the educational element of ShuffleCon. So there were 8 crews that were being featured, each having their own booth at the conference, where attendees could go up and get the history of each crew, the members within the culture that we kind of hold to our hearts. And it just allowed the crew members and the attendees to really connect, learn about one another, and just show the colors of that crew, so to speak. And also we had a Shuffle Timeline in collaboration with FTS as well. And basically this is a group that is devoted to figuring out the accurate historical account of shuffle dancing as we know it. And they had a brief documentary for us to watch and some encouraging words to push the culture forward, which I will also get to more so in my personal account after we get done with all these facts. Next, we had crew performances that were also involved. So crews were able to showcase kind of what they're all about, obviously with dance. And that could have manifested in a choreo, that could have manifested in a freestyle dance. It was really up to each of the crews to do what they wanted to do. They had 2 minutes during this time to showcase their skill sets and who they were. So that was very cool to see each of the crews, different flavor that they brought to the table, and how diverse everyone was in that regard. And then finally, this was a perfect place to network with one another, but I would like to call it more family time, quality time with the community. And so there were, attendees from all over the country that were there and fostering connections while we were all in this. It was a kind of like a warehouse, but perfect for what the intent was surrounding this event. But everyone in the same place. Maybe many have met each other in the past, maybe not, but there was a lot of reconnecting, connecting, introductions across the board, and it was just neat to see. Specifically, where my booth was located, I was next to the sitting area where people could kind of just chill out a little bit if they were, tired from dancing or whatever else. And I was overhearing just really deep conversations, and, people were catching up, and it was very wholesome to get to see that. And really just anywhere you turn, there were two smiley faces talking to one another. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it as well. And for ShuffleCon, really just holding that space for people to be able to do that. So as for my journey getting to ShuffleCon, I first arrived in San Diego. I was staying with my crew member, Sed Gomez, and we went ahead and did an interview, a long form interview for Shuffle Curious. And then the same day that I arrived, and then later that day, we went ahead and did a Shuffle and Flow meetup, and that was the first one that I attended in San Diego, which was a ton of fun. And like I said, Sed was gracious enough to host me that night. That was Friday. No, excuse me. That was Thursday. And I was planning to get to LA on Friday. So the following day, I said my goodbyes, but I knew I would see him in less than 24 hours at ShuffleCon because he was going to be in attendance as well. So I started to make my way up to LA on Friday. And so I took the train, which was awesome. Nice scenic route of the Pacific Ocean there. And got to LA, got to my Airbnb, which I was sharing with a bunch of my crew members and also fellow Denverite and Mile High Shuffler, Emeka. And when I got there, none of the sideshow folks were there yet, but Emeka was there. He just got back from a meetup that was happening the night before ShuffleCon. And we just chilled out. We talked, just caught up a little bit. Emeka was competing in the shuffle tournament. So we just talked about, battle mindset and what he was expecting, how he was going to go about his rounds and things of that nature. So, but we had an early night. After our chat, we decided to hang it up and get some sleep. We both had a big day the next day. So got an early bedtime in and woke up a little bit earlier the next day. All the sideshow folks came through for just to stop by the Airbnb, and then before we knew it, we were Ubering over to the venue. And so we got to the venue, and we got there a little bit earlier because Sideshow had set up their booth because we were one of the crews that were showcasing or just being a part of the crews that were in attendance. So got there a little bit earlier to set that up. And then also for my role, I was doing media for ShuffleCon. So I got there a little bit earlier. And just entering the venue, it was quite the atmosphere. As I kind of led on in the beginning, it was perfect for what was trying to be achieved at ShuffleCon. The floors were great. They weren't too grippy. It was kind of like that smooth concrete. And the layout was perfect. There were stairs kind of in the middle of the venue, and then there were two portions off to the side. One was for the booths and kind of a sitting area and bending area all in one spot. And then the other side was for the battle arena for where the shuffle tournament would be. And then also the DJs were right next to that as well. And so there was a place to go up to kind of in the middle to go up the stairs. And then there was a top floor where you could kind of see down on the bottom floor where those booths were in the battle arena. And it was perfect because people could be up on the stairs or on the top floor and looking down either on the booth portion or to watch the battles. So really the layout was conducive to everything that, was going on in the venue, whether that be the showcases, whether that be the battles, whether it be just party time afterwards. It was great. And so when I first got in there, I was noticing all these things. In particular, I noticed the music was bumping even before, doors opened. And this was just a theme throughout the night. The music was spot on. There was sprinkling of house, but it was mostly like techno, hard techno, peak time techno, some of that like dark and groovy stuff, trance, tech trance. What I like to refer to as like hot girl techno. It's like, feminine vocals over like a heavy kick. And so it was just, it was checking all of my boxes for sure. And so I was really enjoying that, just vibing over at my booth and whatnot. But one of the other things that I saw as I was walking in was all of the FTS helpers kind of and organizers just dotting their I's, crossing their T's, making sure everything was good to go and that they were all ready to open doors. And this was at like 4:30. I think doors were opened at 6. So they were just kind of tying everything up, making sure it was good. And there was a little bit of anticipation in the air. A lot of the FTS members seemed excited and maybe a little bit nervous as well. Wanted everything to go well. So it was cool to kind of see that, and you could kind of see it with all the crew booths that were setting up too. There was that anticipation for the event to start as well. So just some observations, and one of the things that pleasantly surprised me walking into the venue was having a dedicated booth for Shuffle Curious. It wasn't relayed to me that I'd really have a spot, and so in my mind, I thought that I'd have to be very resourceful to find a spot, to find like an outlet somewhere, in some corner to set up and hopefully, make everything work. But to my surprise, and shout out to Susie, one of the FTS organizers, they had a table for me. They had chairs. They had my own little, spot close to my crew's booth as well, which is super cool, right next to Killer Steez and their booth. And I had like a outlet right there for all my gear. I was able just to kind of snap in. Not a lot of time was wasted getting set up because it was like, hey, you got that right there, set up, do whatever you need to do. So that was awesome. And I really appreciate FTS for, carving out a spot for me. It really made me feel at home. It allowed me to do the best job possible because I no longer had to worry about logistics, and I could really just turn to doing what I was there to do. And that's just capturing the moment or the event, one conversation at a time. And so I didn't really have to worry about, much of the things that happen around that, like I said, the logistics and setting up and figuring things out on a moment's notice. It was all kind of figured out for me. So I was able to kind of get down the business quicker. So that was awesome. And so that kind of brings me to, what Shuffle Curious's role was throughout the tournament. My intention was to really speak to everyone. I didn't really scoff at any one conversation. I was very much ADHD brain. You know what I mean? I was kind of taking them as they came. Specifically, if I saw like a competitor, I'd very much, want to talk to them before the competition. But, if someone came up to the booth and was super just energized about the event or the podcast or whatever else, it's like, all right, hey, let me come talk to you. And, I would go around and I'd mingle, and really whoever wanted to jump in, I was down for. Specifically, I was trying to grab the organizers because I knew I wanted to talk with them, but they were all super busy, so it was all good. I grabbed a bunch of the judges, grabbed a bunch of the competitors, a lot of just the general population as well, friends who I haven't talked to in a minute, and then just and strangers too. Whoever was coming up and vibing, or whoever I was just crossing paths with, and I'd pull them off to the side and we would just do the thing. So that was a lot of fun, and I think it kind of showed the excitement of everyone involved, especially in the beginning of the event. And then I had interviews throughout the night, of course, during the battles, and then after the battles, when we kind of went more towards the party, and so the questions kind of changed a little bit, and but everyone was just kind of glowing during those conversations. So it was a lot of fun. It was a vibrant atmosphere, and I was so glad to be able to speak to everyone and kind of get their thoughts surrounding the event. And the one thing that I thought was super cool was at my booth, it was pretty far away from the dance floor. However, the whole entire place was the dance floor. Like, let's be honest, it's full of shufflers. Like, we're all gonna find like our little pocket. So we had people, or we had shufflers in front of my booth, getting down in front of the other crew booths. Before the battles even started, a bunch of shufflers were in the battle arena getting after it. People were on the top floor doing their thing. Like, it was just, like I said, the music was popping off. So I don't think our demographic can really contain themselves in that kind of environment. So it was fun. I was catching a groove behind my booth as well, inviting people back there. We have a couple clips of just the video camera is set to or position to for interview style, you know what I mean, from like waist up. But we were all just kind of like dancing in front of it for a little bit, just vibing out. So some of my friends and new friends came behind the booth and just we cut the whole interview stuff and just caught a groove. So that was a lot of fun, and it was a little unexpected as well. But that was just the energy of the event as well. It was very just laid back, free flowing. Everyone was having a great time. So with that, moving on to the next part of the night, I was interviewing people for about 2 hours or so, but then FTS kind of wanted to move the agenda forward. And so we started the performances, the showcases, and then the battles. But before that, we had a very cool presentation by Shuffle Timeline about basically documenting shuffling as we know it from cradle to grave, or from cradle to where we are now. And they created a very neat visual of a timeline bringing us to current day and all the historical accounts that come with that. And at the end of this kind of mini documentary, they encouraged everyone to really instill and document their own shuffle progress on an individual level, and to save it, and outside of Instagram and things of this nature. And really, the reason for saying that, or what I gathered, was that you just don't know who will stumble across the things that you're doing, and how you're developing as a dancer, and how it might drive the culture forward. Someone might grab a bit of what you're doing, and then move it forward and add their own flair to it. Next, they had crew performances and showcases. So each crew had 2 minutes to put together whatever they really wanted to do, whether that be a choreography or freestyle. We were able to pick the songs and just exhibit. Each of the crews were able to exhibit, their talents, and all their members too, or most of their members, the members who were in attendance. So the crew showcases were very interesting. Everyone had a different take on it. You had choreos, you had freestyles, ciphers. Some people used props. Some crews were more heavy hitting, and then others were more just vibing out. So it was very interesting to see. One of the crew showcases that I just wanted to highlight was Sideshow Shufflers. It was a lot of fun. We did a cipher for our showcase, and we timed it up. There was about 10 of us, for each of us to go about 8 seconds or so, and to just jump in for a dance phrase or two. And we had a pretty long song too. I mean, it was within the 2 minutes that we'd be finishing up, but some of us jumped in for a little bit too long, me being one of them. And at the very end, we had Colin, also known as Gribbs, jump into the circle. And right when he jumped in, the music stopped. And it was very funny how he just went about it. First, he just froze like a statue and was just, I guess, waiting for the DJ to spin it back, which never came. So he got out of his statue pose and, started to kind of just mess around and was jumping around and a little bit of a running man there, and was still waiting for the music. But a really cool thing happened. The crowd started to jump in and started to give him, first it was like a oons, 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 oons. And then people started clapping with it. Oons, oons, clap, clap, clap. And eventually, he was feeling the beat. You could see him, just sensing it out. and went into a running man, went into a rock, and then started to do some groundwork as well, which people freaking lost their minds over. It was a sight to be held. And I love this because it showed just like the encouragement and the why the audience was there. You know what I mean? It wasn't to be, judgmental or, to point and laugh when things didn't go according to plan, for our showcase in particular, but it was just to allow people to express themselves. People or the audience at large just wanted to see the man dance, so they gave him the opportunity to do so, in a very loving manner, and I just thought that was really neat, very special, and it was funny as as the uh, as the encouragement and the claps and all that stuff started to kind of die out. Colin was still getting it. Like, he stayed in the circle for a little bit longer than what everyone was. He stayed in the circle beyond the energy of the crowd, which was just a testament to him. He's so fun. And a couple of us talked about it afterwards. And he was the perfect one for that job. He was the one that could totally just crush that run in that situation. So we're glad we put him last. So after the showcases, the battles started. And at that time, I was my intention was to do some like ESPN style ringside interviews, and that didn't really come to fruition. While we were in the rounds, the battles were so captivating, and like I was just on the floor right next to where our competitors were doing their thing, and I just didn't want to leave, to be completely honest. And I don't think that the competitors really wanted to leave from that environment either. So I just took the opportunity in between rounds to grab one or two people from time to time, but it wasn't during the battles that I was doing interviews or anything like that, because everyone was just crushing it. Everyone was putting their hearts out onto the dance floor. And, I was, for me personally, I was torn with every match, even though some individuals were more familiar than others as they were battling. I just loved seeing everyone trying their best and, just crushing it. I was really cheering just for everyone involved, no matter who I thought should have won or whatever else. So throughout the rounds, there were a lot of intense matchups, and the crowd was getting super involved, always supportive for all the competitors, and just really enjoying each of the runs and the rounds throughout. And a couple of competitors kind of stick out to me. I always love seeing Jordan Syke, also known as Syke, getting down using his hypnotic like liquid movements. Also, Dapper Danny was using props, gave a flower to Sierra, one of the judges, and then threw out like a big running man at the end of his run. So it was very cool to see that contrast that he had going there. That was a very fun round against Sarah as well. And just Kale throughout the tournament, he got to the finals. Dragon Fade, just steady rocking, being very consistent with his runs, making them very clean. And I think that's how he secured a spot in the finals. Mars, throwing out a ton of shapes, being on point with her musicality, but also, some more heavy hitting styles as well, such as Melbourne. And so it was cool to see the diversity in many of her runs too. And then Chris, Crisis Shuffler, was just being Chris all the way to the finals. Also, his musicality was very much on point. Just crushing it, always having just so much in his fuel tank to give it his all. And eventually, that is what had him win the whole thing. And, I do think both of the finalists, Kale and Chris, both really stayed true to their game plans. Like I said, Kale was very consistent. And then, Chris just did what Chris did, as he always does. And so it was very cool to see them both compete against each other. They did 2 runs each on the final round. And Chris was the one who brought home the bacon and won the whole thing. And won $1,500 was the grand prize. And I just have to acknowledge just how the low key nature of both of the finalists. Both of them were a class act. Once Kale realized that Chris won, immediately congratulated him. Immediately was just happy. Happy for the whole thing. Chris's standing at that point. So it was very neat to watch. It was sportsmanship at its best. So after that, I did make sure to grab Chris and just to give him an interview. And the man was so appreciative just of the opportunity that he had to be there to compete. All the hard work that he had put in kind of came to fruition in that moment, or he was rewarded for all of that hard work and the passion that he puts into this dance. So it was a very just low key interview, but it's always a pleasure speaking to Chris. I'll be releasing that interview in the near future for sure. So after the battles, we transitioned to party time. And it was just a big shuffle circle, I feel like. Actually, there were pockets of different shuffle circles. When I went up to the top floor as the festivities were really getting started, I identified like probably 6 or 7 little pockets of shufflers getting at it. And then some like lone wolves here and there too. And it was very cool. It was just, it was a time for everyone to, all business was set aside. The battles were over, the showcases, all the scheduled programming was pretty much over with. And then it was about like 11 p.m. at night, and this thing went until 3 a.m. So it was just 4 hours ahead of us of just dancing and vibing. And it was very cool. One of the things in particular that I thought was very interesting was, again, being on that second floor, looking down at all the shufflers doing their thing. The etiquette involved with it, with all of it, and just like the seamless interactions and movements of all the shufflers on the dance floor. We've all been to clubs and things of that nature where you'll have someone just walk straight through a dance circle, not even just a shuffle circle, but a dance circle, and be a little bit oblivious to what's kind of happening. And that didn't seem to be a problem at ShuffleCon. It seemed like a lot of unspoken rules and etiquette were being played out because we're a bunch of shufflers. We know, we all have shared experiences in that regard. So it was very cool to see all of us interacting with one another and allowing the dance floor to be to not be constrained by any one person's behavior. It was very much everyone understood where they needed to place themselves, if they were dancing, if they weren't dancing, things of that nature. So interesting, just an interesting tidbit there. And people were going off. The circles were crazy. Just different crews were maybe had some circles. I know Sideshow had a circle right next to our booth, and we were just taking turns over there, encouraging other people to jump in because our motto is very much "you can dance with us." So that was a lot of fun. And the DJs were just pretty much killing it the whole entire night. I did not sense any period of time where, the music was detracting from one DJ to the other. It was always just, just solid music. We had trance going, we had hard techno, we had some peak time techno. It was dope. It was so cool. I was jealous. I wanted to be B2B with some of them though. Next time. But it was just amazing to look around and see everyone sharing the joy that this event brought one another. Just reconnecting with friends. Like I said, maybe some people haven't seen each other since like last year or the last festival or whatever else. So it's always good to get back together and just share the space with one another. And during this time, I was doing a couple interviews during the party, and everyone was just kind of riding cloud nine at that time. All the competitors that I'd interviewed at that time weren't taking their losses too hard. Like they were vibing just as much, and everyone else was just having a great time. So it was very fun to share the remaining hours of ShuffleCon with some of these attendees and just kind of getting their thoughts as the event passed or was coming to an end, what their thoughts were. So when the night was concluding, I was very reluctant to leave. I was dragging my behind to pack everything up and to call an Uber because I wanted to stay. I wanted it to go until 4 a.m. or even later. But it was about that time my Airbnb was rolling out, and I think we were leaving somewhere around like 2:30 or so. So the party would have been going on for another 30 to 45 minutes. So it was about that time, but we had had so much fun that there was definitely an allure to stay and just vibe until the very last minute. So that was very much a testament to, what I experienced at ShuffleCon, not wanting it to end. And, but towards the last minute of being there, just catching a steady rock and groove in and, saying my goodbyes. However, a lot of us were going to meet at the studio the next day, the FTS studio, formerly known as the Flow Complex. So we wouldn't be separated for that long. But so when we got back to the Airbnb, we all kind of just like settled in and we were just chilling and just kind of, I think everyone was kind of coming to grips with the experience and processing it. And I think there was an overwhelming consensus that this was a great time and it was a great idea. It was executed very well. And I think a lot of people made up their minds that they'll definitely be in attendance next year as well. So the day following ShuffleCon was Studio Day. So many of the shufflers who were in attendance at ShuffleCon also made their way to the Flow Complex, also known as the FTS studio, to go groove. So we had woken up pretty late the following day in my Airbnb. We made some breakfast. Everyone just pretty much chilled out until on or about like 4 o'clock or so. Some people started to head out to the studio. I headed over to the Arizona Shufflers Airbnb to go and interview one of my crew members, Christian. And that was a lot of fun. I had a great time speaking to Christian. It's always fun getting to know your crew members just like a little bit more. And Christian has been a very large or big advocate for the podcast. So it was awesome to have him on and just to have him describe his shuffle journey. So another spoiler alert, I will be having him on the podcast. But after that, we both made our way to the studio. greeting pretty much everyone who we saw at ShuffleCon. And, by the time that we got there, it had been underway for a couple hours. So people were vibing. There was a lot of dancing from wall to wall. There were shufflers doing their thing. There were pockets, formed for little shuffle circles. But also, some people were just grabbing a piece of mirror and just dancing very close to that. It was packed, but we were making it work, and it was very cool. And so during that time, as soon as I got there, I was just catching a groove, greeting all my fellow shufflers, all my friends, and I wanted to grab some of the FTS ShuffleCon organizers to go ahead and do kind of like a recap of ShuffleCon, but not a monologue with them included, and kind of have it be a group discussion. And along with that, I also wanted to grab Josh and Kit, who are the owners of the Flow Complex, and just have them kind of just talk about what the Flow Complex is all about. And because, I mean, to be completely honest, having a studio, a standalone studio such as the Flow Complex, for a local community to gather in and to always kind of be there and have it be a space where shufflers can come and collaborate. There's consistency involved. Flow Complex always has Sunday sessions. For it to have this kind of entity in a local community, I think can really bolster it and strengthen it over time. And, for me, I've always kind of been like a entrepreneur, and hard for me to work for other people and things of that nature. So I've always thought about dance studios and how they can really pay the bills and sustain themselves, and how they can affect the community as well. So I had a bunch of questions for them, and it was very cool for just Josh and Kit being very open and vulnerable, and just talking me through just what the Flow Complex means to their local community, and how it's helped everyone throughout the years. So that was very cool. And then obviously speaking to the FTS organizers as well was just as intriguing, because I kind of got to see what was underneath the hood. The inspiration for ShuffleCon, all the challenges involved, just like all the hurdles and the pivoting that had to occur from it. Originally, it was supposed to be in Utah, and it came back to LA, and they just really also accented or clued us into how important this was to FTS, and they wanted to do a good job. And their intent behind it. So those interviews will also be coming out too. And so I'm really excited for you guys to hear what they had to say. My words cannot do it justice, so I'll let everyone check those out. But it was a great time speaking to all the leaders of FTS, and just getting a deeper understanding of who they are and why they do the things that they do. And also, I just wanted to express my gratitude for them being able to, express my gratitude for them including me in this event and allowing me to contribute wherever I felt was my highest and best use for ShuffleCon. And that just happened to be a media role, doing these brief interviews, and some being longer than others. But also I guess covering the event in a different light, outside of the visual arts, the videography and the photography, which we do need. I think that captures a lot of the event, but also just getting people's personal anecdotes, as I had mentioned before, I think goes a long way as well, and just documenting, kind of what went down on the day of ShuffleCon and throughout the weekend as well. So it was awesome to be a part of. When I had to leave the following day, it was like a dopamine crash. I really enjoyed my time at ShuffleCon. I loved just getting reconnected with a lot of the friends that I'd made throughout the year, making new friends, becoming more acquainted with FTS was really great. And I just had an overall amazing time. So this recap video can really be perceived as a testimonial. I really enjoyed just being there and doing the things that I was doing and having literally no constraints with that. They trusted me to, just do a good job. I don't think there was really any expectation for what I needed to do, or a role that they wanted me to fill. But they just trusted me to do what I do, and I really appreciate that. If anything, they empowered me to be able to kind of take this role and run with it. So I thank them for that. I thank them for inviting me into the space that they created, and to kind of have my creative juices flowing throughout the event. And it really was an inspiration for me. I left ShuffleCon kind of with a new perception as to where I want to take Shuffle Curious, and a lot of different ideas, and that came from acknowledgement from a lot of the attendees and the leaders of FTS, and encouragement just to keep going and to move forward with this. So, and all of my friends that I reconnected with, or new friends that I made throughout ShuffleCon, also, gave me this encouragement and acknowledgement throughout. So I thank them as well. And I'm viewing this whole podcast in a new light because of this event and the people who who I surrounded myself with at ShuffleCon. So it was really an amazing time. I think a lot of people share that sentiment with me, and I'm really looking forward to next year. So with that, I think I'm pretty much done my recap. If you guys have anything else that you'd like me to elaborate on, or maybe for the next recap that I do, some details that you would like me to add or detract, because I know that I can speak for quite a while, please let me know. However, this needs to be fine-tuned for it to be more valuable. I would love that feedback. So with that, I'm taking off. I hope you guys have a great day, and make sure you get out there and dance, and please stay curious. I'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to the Shuffle Curious podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the show so far. We are past the launch, and I'm so appreciative of the support that the show has received. You guys have really stepped up in a huge way, and I'm eternally grateful for that. I know this is a big ask due to the show just starting, and it's very much in its infancy, but any and all support would really be amazing from you guys. So I just wanted to come on and list a couple ways that you guys can help out the podcast moving forward. So first and foremost, subscribing to the YouTube channel would be a huge help. Among, also sharing and following the show on other social media platforms, such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, but in particular, YouTube will really help increase the visibility of the show, and it can help to reach a wider audience as well.
In addition to this, leaving a review on anywhere where podcasts are distributed, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, can really leave a positive impression on new listeners, and it will help them discover the podcast more readily. Also, engaging with the podcast, so leaving comments, participating in social media discussions, and just anything that would really help build a community around the podcast would be of great assistance. And please feel free, DM me my personal Instagram at Patty Creates, or the show's Instagram at the Shuffle Curious Podcast, with the spaces being underscores. I would love to hear any feedback, any ideas, any discourse around the show. It would be an honor to hear you guys out and implement some of the ideas and the feedback that you guys have for me. Also, donating to the podcast directly or purchasing a Shuffle Curious shirt would help out a lot. There's a lot of time, there's a lot of energy, and unfortunately money that goes into the podcast, and it will continue to go into the podcast. So let's just get one thing straight here. It's really been a complete joy doing the show, and no matter how much or how little monetary assistance the show receives, we'll still be performing the mission of bringing the Shuffle community together. But with a little bit of help, I'll be able to travel more for these interviews, buy better equipment, be able to compensate all the amazing people who have made the show a reality and have volunteered their time, things of that nature. So buying a shirt would be much more than buying a shirt. And I don't know if you guys realize, but if I ever saw someone at a festival wearing a Shuffle Curious podcast shirt, you would be my best friend in a huge way. I'd love to see it, and I'd give you a big bear hug. So you can purchase these shirts on the Instagram bio of the show, also the show's website, and then I'll have links in the show notes as well. As for the donation, just please, send me a DM if you feel inclined to donate to the show. I will definitely entertain that, and if you're so inclined, that would be absolutely amazing. I'm not going to create a button for donating to the show or GoFundMe or anything like that. It would just be a conversation between you and I. So, and I thank you for that consideration. But lastly, you guys have supported the show just by listening, also listening to this whole outro. That's awesome. You guys rule for doing that. And I just cannot understate my appreciation for all of you guys, for being a part of this crazy ride that it's been so far. So without further ado, I wanted to get on. I'll give you guys a couple of ways that you can support. You can run with as many or as little of them as you would like, but I thank you, regardless, for your listenership and support. So with that, I'm going to get out of here. Please get out there and dance, stay curious, and I will see you in the next episode, friend.